So let's now take a look at the second mini race, the Celtic Speed Mini Cooper Cup. And remember, the first race was an absolute firecracker, and there's an amended grid as the lights come on. Full complement lights, away we go. Michael Weddell was excluded from race number 1, and he starts at the back for race number 2. There he is there, and that was for driving standards when he kind of pitched into David McNaughton, and McNaughton rolled at Clark's. But look at this, we're already at the hairpin. David Slay's on the inside. John Duncan tries to go round the outside. Ross Wilkinson in 3rd place, and Hannah Chapman's got herself up into 4th place. And there you can see David McNaughton's car, no boot lid and no windscreen. So effectively it'll be like driving a single-seater for David McNaughton as they thunder round towards Clark's. Craig Blake tries to go round outside of Hannah Chapman. Surely not, surely yes. Good move, Craig Blake. Congratulations, that was an absolute stormer. Hannah Chapman won't like that. She's now got Ian Munro trying to come past her, going in towards the chicane, but Munro has to back out with that one because Chappers is quite fierce and late on the brakes there. But that was a big move by number 95, Craig Blake, and he's already all over the back. Yeah, of Russ Wilkinson. Oh, look at that, Wilkinson. I was just about to say, but that was McNaughton running a little bit wide there. Well, he can't put any more bashes in the car, so he may as well drive it like he stole it as they come up the main straight. Slay from Duncan, Wilkinson, Blake, Chapman, Munro. Then we've got Dom Wheatley. Then the car, which looks a little bit strange, ladies and gentlemen, the ALM car, was upside down at the end of race number 1, so they have done a great job to fix that. Now, who was that parked against the side of the track there, the tyre wall? Difficult for me to get a view on that one. We'll have to come back on that. That could have been... No, let's not guess. Let's not guess. Let's watch the race leaders go through Clark's. Contrasting lines as they go into Clark's there. David Slay tending not to use too much off the turn in the entrance curb. And all over it was John Duncan as they go down through the chicane. What's going to happen for that battle in 3rd place? Because Ross Wilkinson's under all sorts of pressure now from the fast-charging Craig Blake, because they know that David McNaughton has a great deal of pace. And will they have an added advantage having no boot lid? Well, probably not. It'll probably get very fumey in that car, and it won't taste very nice after the drive. They'll probably have a sore head, but they're going to have to watch, because that ALM car's got a whole heap of speed in it. He's already behind Dom Wheatley. There he goes. So David McNaughton is coming. You can cue the Jaws theme because he is angry after race number 1. And look at this at the hairpin. John Duncan tries to go up the inside. He unsettles David Slay. He makes a move. He gets through. The move sticks. Great stuff from John Duncan to get past here. David Slay probably wasn't expecting that. We saw David drive an extremely defensive first race. Drove it perfectly. Got to say, absolutely perfectly to take the race number 1 win. But now John Duncan leads away from David Slay. There's a bit of a gap back to look at this gaggle of cars going over Clark Corner. Great camera view there. Track Scotland car of Fiona Kindness trying to go through as well. Bouncing over the curb, the Saltire car. But look at this. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th all tied together as Wheatley's looking at the back of Chapman now. Tom Wheatley fancies a go at the back again past Hannah Chapman as he goes up Duffus Dip. There's your 2 leaders. Then this is a proper mini race. This Ross Wilkinson's got a little bit of a breather over Craig Blake now, but Craig Blake has got absolutely nothing over the man, or the girl right behind him, should say, Hannah Chapman. Very, very fast females. Into the hairpin comes the 2 leaders. Bit of defensive lining from John Duncan. Well, I would be defensive as well if I had David Slay behind me and that close. The marauding pack comes through the hairpin as well, but the camera follows the 2 leaders towards Clark's. I do like this camera view looking down. This is what the commentators see. The cars going from Clark's through Hislops, or from Hislops to Clark's, you should say. And look at McNaughton. He's managed to get ahead off. Is that Wheatley and Munro? Yes, he has. So driving very well is Dave McNaughton in that white car as they go down towards the chicane for one more time. Chapman started to defend from McNaughton. The threat is there. The threat is real as they go through Butchers. Can Craig Blake have a little pop in towards McIntyre's? It's not the greatest overtaking place, and if you do it, you then kind of compromise yourself on the exit. But look at McNaughton. McNaughton trying to get the cut back round Hannah Chapman, up Leslie's, and onto Duffus Dip. Munro right behind the ALM car of McNaughton as well, and trying very, very hard. We've got Simon Holderness in the battle as well, and Craig Dillon's out there as well, so there's a lot of good drivers in this field. Ross Wilkinson's wide. Oh, Wilkinson makes a little error. Oh, he's gone into the gravel. Massive, costly mistake for Ross Wilkinson. That is going to drop him right down. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4 cars. 5 cars about to go past him because of that. And a little bit of bump draft, and Munro pushes David McNaughton past Hannah Chapman, and he tries to follow through, does he? Yes, he does. So Craig Blake, he would be delighted to see that little mistake for Ross Wilkinson, but look how many spots Ross made, or lost, sorry, in that little error at the hairpin. Run a little bit wide, but then the costly bit was running into the gravel on the exit, and that cost him so much time and drive. Great shame. Punishment and crime, maybe don't add up, to tell you the truth. But Ross will be back. There's a long enough race in this. Look at McNaughton, that's not an overtaking place, but McNaughton pulls it off. Wow, he gets past Craig Blake going up Duffy's Dip, does it at the apex at the top of the hill. So David McNaughton has come from nowhere, absolutely nowhere. He's come from being upside down in the gravel at Clark's to getting himself onto or into a podium position at this point in this mini race. There's still a long way to go as the leaders go through. Then we've got McNaughton. Munro goes up the inside of Blake, forces Blake a little bit wide. Was that a couple of wheels in the gravel for Craig Blake as they head round towards Clark's? I think it would have been. Camera's not picked that up though, and here we go, looking down from above. Dom Wheatley's come from nowhere as well. He's come from the back of this pack. He goes round Munro and tucks himself in behind the crumpled car of David McNaughton. A few of them taking a big bite of the sausage curb as they go over Clark corner there. Michael Weddle now starting to appear at the back as well. So Weddle's come from the back of the grid after that exclusion from race 1, where he was deemed to have failed the driver's standards when he had the collision with Dave McNaughton, and McNaughton spun then rolled. But you can see that car of David McNaughton's. It's just credit to the team for even getting him back out there, to tell the truth, because it ain't pretty, but it is fast and effective, so that's all that really matters. Across the line go the two leaders. Now where's David McNaughton? There he comes now. Behind him, Dom Wheatley, then Munro, Blake, Chapman, and they're all funneling through and looking for an overtaking place as they come down towards the hairpin. Simon Holderness will be delighted to be in this battle ahead of Russ Wilkinson as they all go through the hairpin. Tricky little corner that, drops away from you, and you can see what happens if you put a wheel in the gravel on the exit. It takes a long time for the car to get out of that gravel and back onto the track. Your two leaders have come through. Now David Slay is keeping John Duncan very, very honest in this, as we'll have a look at lap times that the guys have done. Best lap of the race for John Duncan, a 63.4 second lap. David Slay's done a 63.5 thus far. I don't think they will go any faster than that. The tyres will be past their best now, but you never know what could happen. David McNaughton's fastest lap's a 63.7, and considering he's come through a lot of traffic to try and do that, pretty impressive stuff. Over the line they go once again, not much separating these two leaders, but then there's a 4 and a bit second gap back to this man here in the white ALM car, and he's going to be happy looking in his rearview mirror, if he's got one, that is, because, well, yeah, it is there, you can see that. Obviously they've stuck it to the roof of the roll cage. But he'll see that there's a gap behind him to Ian Munro and Craig Blake, who are now starting to battle as well, and Ross Wilkinson has got Michael Weddle onto the back of him now, so that's going to be quite interesting. Craig Dillon, the next man in the queue with Fiona Kindness. We've got Andrew Bell, David Long and Ashley Morris also out there. We should give them a bit of a shout out as the chain of cars all go past the marshals standing at the side there. Got to thank the marshals for the job they do from the SMMC. Great stuff, great work, and all is here, a big army of them supporting the racers. And look at that, Slay's trying hard. Is that the tyres being past their best that caused that little moment there? Because that's going to hurt David Slay all the way up the straight. Look how much time he's lost by that slight mistake at McIntyre's. John Duncan will be pulling away all the time, and as they head up towards the end part of this race, David Slay is making it hard for him now. It looks like it will end up after race number 2, 1 win each. But there's still the final to go. The reverse grid race for the Celtic Speed Mini Cooper Cup is, well, it's still to happen, isn't it? As we look back from the middle of the circuit, here comes David McNaughton, and he has driven supremely in this race. He's got a nice gap over Ian Munro, who has absolutely no gap over number 95, Craig Blake, who has a little bit of a gap over Chapper's Hannah Chapman. And then Simon Holderness in that green number 52 ahead of Ross Wilkinson, who has Michael Weddle. Michael Weddle very much the behaved man in this race after the first race. As the cars all pop through the top of the chicane, one curb onto the next curb, then it's like a roller coaster up here. The car tends to go a little bit light at Butchers, but then it gets back on the ground here. Weddle had a look up the inside there. Weddle was thinking about a bit of a manoeuvre, but Wilkinson had that one covered. as up towards the end of the race comes this man here. John Duncan's going to be absolutely over the moon with that. A win for him from David Slade. David McNaughton does get third place, with Ian Monroe, Craig Blake and Hannah Chapman all coming through for the remainder of those positions. Simon Holderness does get 7th ahead of Wilkinson, Weddle and Craig Dillon rounds out the top 10. But that makes it 1 each for Slay and John Duncan.